The Bridge of Progress is an absolute love letter, and it shows because there are Easter eggs shoved into every corner. Which means... of course we're gonna dive into all of those. So, in case you missed it, 2 days ago we got a big PvE patch. Now, it's big because of the raw content that is included, however, it does come with a twist. First of all, Mbessa was dropped onto PvE, and she became a hot topic to talk about for multiple reasons. Then, people could start testing the Bridge of Progress as a new version of ARAM. And then... we got nothing else. There are no Arcane skins included in this PvE or anything like that, and that's likely because Riot wants to avoid all kinds of spoilers. And this also includes a disabled feature which we know is part of the Bridge of Progress because it is in the code, but again, it's likely disabled because of spoilers. More about that near the end of the video. Speaking of which, don't worry, there will be no spoilers in this video. Now, knowing how Riot's other maps have always hidden Easter eggs somewhere around, such as the strawberries lying around the Swarm map, hinting at the original codename of the game mode, the original ARAM hiding a lot of references towards the Watchers, or even just plain Summoner's Rift hiding some gems around. It was obvious that the Bridge of Progress would also be full of Easter eggs. And so, the first thing I did was fire up a few games, so I could jump into a replay and fly around with the camera. But before we dive out of boundaries of what we were likely supposed to see, here is why it instantly became obvious that this map is gonna be special. It's simply because everything on this map is themed around Piltover and Zaun. It is not just a remodel of the original ARAM. I am pretty sure everything got changed and updated. For example, even the base VFX are themed around Piltover and Zaun. When you pick up a health pack, the visuals are Hextech. The bushes were turned into smoke, or if you wanna be fancy, the Zaun Grey. And even the snowballs are turned into something amazing. If you are playing on the Piltover side, your snowball is gonna be turned into a Hextech gem, which you are just throwing at the enemy. And if you are Zaun, your snowball is gonna become a Chemtech canister. And at the end of the game, when one of the Nexuses explodes, not only is there a new fancy victory screen, but also the Nexus explodes into the runes which are featured in Arcane. Or if you are on the Zaunite half, then it explodes in a splash of shimmer. It is the details like these that really made me pause for a moment. And don't even get me started with the music. There are 3 separate Easter eggs hidden here as well. First of all, the main theme of the Bridge of Progress is the same leitmotif that is often used for Jace in Arcane. This is because this is the same leitmotif that is often used for whenever there is some kind of progression around Hextech, and Jace kinda is included. Then, when the battle on the bridge starts ramping up, we get a different theme that is actually an epic version of the original lullaby that Powder was singing at the opening scenes of Arcane 1. It was that one scene at the bridge. And lastly, depending on what side you start at, the 2 teams get their own entry theme. Again, the Piltover side has a version of the progression theme, but the Zaun side has a special version of the lanes theme which was used in that one scene where the Wardens investigated the pub. So yes, 3 separate Easter eggs in the music alone. But now, let's actually dive into the free camera and let's have a look around. Let's start at the Zaun side, because truth be told, this side is a lot more interesting than the Piltover side. First of all, of course, both sides have their own unique shopkeeper, with Zaun having a Yordle merchant. Now, honestly, I would be happier if we got that one fish guy from the fish market that everyone remembers from Arcane 1, or Banzo, but I don't think that's gonna work out now. But the reason why we likely got a Yordle instead of the fish guy is because Riot needed someone who could speak, because the shopkeeper is also the announcer for the side. So now I wonder, will this guy be in Season 2 somewhere? Anyway, following all the other vendors on the other maps, these two shopkeepers have their own intro animations. Essentially, they have their standing animation when someone is shopping, but the moment everyone leaves and no one is present, they have a relaxed animation. And then when someone appears, or in ARAM when someone respawns, they transition back to the original idle animation. And on the Zonite side, when no one is around, the merchant is trying to fix the sign. And when someone arrives, he bonks his head and then tries to sell you something, probably shimmer. Speaking of which, if you have a look around his shop, you may notice some containers of shimmer. We know that's shimmer because it has the Eye of Zon sigil on it. But also they have some shimmer potions and things decorated by Jinx. Also they have whatever is that abomination and a friend everyone recognizes. There is also this floating piece of hair nearby, but don't worry about that, that is just a bugged Poro. Speaking of which, so far it seems like there are 3 different kinds of Poros that can spawn. There might be possibly more later on. But right now there are Poros with Smeech's hat, Poros with Caitlyn's hat, or Poros that have the blue hair of Jinx's followers. Anyway, looking around the shop, you may see that there is a sign showing you that, of course, you can buy weapons here. And then there is this sign with a mushroom, a sword, and what seems to be a potion. And here I am not exactly sure what this might be referencing. It could be a reference to Teemo, someone, and Ziggs, that is, if the potion is actually a bomb. But outside of that, I'm not actually sure on this one. Now behind the store we can also see a blue spray can, there is Jinx's tag, and of course the posters which were directly taken from the show. And below that we get some kind of a device that looks like Jinx's monkey. Tinfoil hat moment here, but I do believe this is what the chompers are gonna look like on the Jinx gacha skin. They do seem to be kinda too specific. But you'll see that is not the only item that might be hinting at the gacha skin. So let's move on. Of course, every proper shop needs a defense system, especially because there is the one friend everyone recognizes. And so, to protect our friend, we get this one giant turret gun. And speaking of weird things you might find around the store, if you go below the merchant, you might find another merchant. And I actually wonder, what is the purpose of this one? Was this just a placeholder to get the scale of the entire place when they were building it up? Or is there something coded into this actor and it needs to be somewhere in the scene for it to properly function? Well, maybe someone will clarify this trivia at some point. Next, going around one of the side alleys, you might find some of the signs that are possibly found somewhere in Arcane. I assume at the very least they might appear somewhere in Arcane 2, but from the top of my head, I can't really tell you where that cat appeared. There are also some tags on the walls that appear broken, but they are only broken for replays. In the game, they actually look good. And of course, since we already tilted the camera up, let me point out the fact that yes, this map actually has no skybox. Because, truth be told, it doesn't need a skybox, you're never gonna see anything outside. So in the reveal trailer, yes, they faked the sky using the sky from the Summoner's Rift. Anyway, beyond the boundaries, we may also find another tag that seems to be Jinx's chomper. And you might find these rats. Now, these rats are actually part of a VFX system, that's why they look so weird. Technically, they seem to be particles, and they randomly run around the entire Zonite side. With the same particle system also being used for the fish underneath the bridge. I'm pretty sure these are the same fish that are used for Nami, but also the butterflies that fly around the lamps. These reference the mechanical butterflies that were shown in Season 1, however, they are not the same ones as the bombs. Anyway, going across the Zonite Plaza, we first pass the awesome Nexus and the turrets. These Chemtech-infused, shimmer-powered, somehow, turrets look absolutely awesome, except their destroy animation is broken on PBE. So just let's enjoy them as they are. And of course, the Nexus on the Zonite side is a giant shimmer tank. Then, going to the other side, we get to perhaps the best part of Zon. That being the statue of Vander. This is the same statue we have seen in the show where Silco mourned Vander's death, and he even had a little bit of a small talk with him. And in-game, it looks absolutely gorgeous. Now, next to this statue, there is another broken tag, and in-game you might notice that it is supposed to be Echo's hourglass. And going a bit further along that side, you might find this. Jinx's infamous Hextech monkey. Now, to me, this really seems to be a surprisingly well modeled and animated asset. Like, it is possible this was not modeled from scratch just for the map. Instead, it is likely that this is gonna be part of the new Jinx gacha skin. Maybe it will be a recall or something like that, but for now, that is just a theory. Now from here, we are not gonna cross the bridge just yet, instead we are gonna go down the stairs. Here you will mostly find background elements, stuff like the docks and ships and very simple ripple effects. But one of these places is a surprisingly faithful recreation of a scene from Arcane. This actually comes from the one scene which Heimerdinger visited after he was kicked out of the council, and it is the same place where he also met Echo for the first time. But more importantly, technically, this is the exact same place that is also used in 2XKO for their arena. And honestly, it is just really cool to see the same place translated between all the different titles. Anyway, back to the bridge. Now still, before we go across, we can also point out that the entire map is part of an illusion. You can see that the entire bridge is actually tilting on one side. It almost seems to be dripping down. Partially, this could be intended to present the fact that there is a war on that bridge, and that one side is standing strong and the other one is broken, but I don't believe that's the case here. Because while one side is definitely slanted, there is no damage there. Maybe besides that one broken pillar near Piltover. But that one is actually on the straight side. No, instead, it is likely that all of this is part of a really cool design trick. Because League is only ever played from a top-down view. So you need to make sure that the pillars that are in the foreground never get in your view. That is one of the reasons why the original ARAM map doesn't have the statues in the front. If they were there, they would obscure your view. And to make sure that doesn't become a problem on the Piltover bridge, because that one has massive pillars on both sides, a really clever way to fix this would be to tilt the pillars in front of the camera away from us. And that is how you get the illusion that the entire bridge is straight, but in reality, one entire side is tilted. Exactly like the enemy team after you keep winning. Look, this may be all nerdy stuff, but this is a really cool detail to me. But finally, let's cross the bridge. So, the first thing you might notice is that this entire map is not perfectly symmetrical. And that is because on the Piltover side, they get this one extra barrier for no reason. I mean, hey, it looks cool and thematically it is awesome, but it's also not present on the Zonite side. Speaking of which, in that choke, while on one side you have the Warden barrier that was actually shown in the show, on the other side you have the massive lights. These were originally set up by Marcus's group when the Wardens closed the bridge. Of course, all of that happened in Arcane 1. Now of course, the fastest way to cross the bridge would be using the Hextech gate. And while on the Piltover side it still remains to be a Hextech gate, they didn't really have to change anything there. Just to be cool, on the Zonite side, the gate is turned into the sewers. And it just fits so well. But that takes us to the Piltover side. Now here you may immediately recognize this plaza because it was inspired by the Progress Day celebrations. I'm just sad we didn't get one of the Jarvan banners in the background here. Anyway, the turrets here are gorgeous, and of course they are powered up by Hextech because we can see the runes floating around. And the Nexus itself is very likely the Hexcore device that was shown in the trailers. Next, when it comes to the Piltover merchant, this one has a lot more references. First of all, the shopkeeper itself is one of those advanced automatons. In front of it, you can see Vi's right glove, which is next to Heimerdinger's goggles, his spanner, and a blueprint. which might be a reference to the original art that was always used for game modes. Also, a similar one was used for Legends of Runeterra. On the other side, you can see Jace's hammer. Not the big one, this is the small one that he used to demonstrate the stability of the original Hextech gem, with one of the spanners that were also used in his lab. There is a mask of the Wardens. And of course, a Demacian blade is just casually lying there in the middle. On the table next to it, we have some health potions and former mana potions, with what seems to be Caitlyn's trap. And behind the merchant, we can see Jace's hammer, the big one, Heimerdinger's tools, Caitlyn's rifle, another Vice right gauntlet, so now she has 2, and 3 more Caitlyn traps. The cool thing about this merchant is that when nobody is present, it actually goes into an idle mode and it closes the shop. And the moment someone respawns, it has a special animation to reopen it. Speaking of which, yes, since every merchant needs a good protection, of course Piltover also has a high caliber turret. And yes, of course, if we look below the merchant, we're gonna find another merchant. I assume the shopping options have to be coded into that model. I guess. But now it's time to have a look around here. Of course, the Piltover side of the bridge is a lot cleaner. The streets are also simply more vibrant, and it has fully featured stores such as this bakery. Fun fact, if you look closely, you may be able to see the faked reflections of the original Summoner's Rift. Honestly, I'm not really sure what is giving reflections on the original Summoner's Rift. I wasn't even aware that the Summoner's Rift had a reflection map texture, but apparently it does, and the Bridge of Progress is reusing it. Of course, next to the bakery you also have a bunch of tables for the guests. Here we may be able to find a croissant and also some teacups and a cupcake. This makes sense because considering where we are, more on that in a second. Yes, there were cupcakes present. And that's because next to that, yes, I told you it would be just a second, we have a place that everyone is gonna be familiar with. And that's of course because this is Jace's old lab that was originally blown up by Powder. All of this happened at the very beginning of Season 1. And here I love how close they managed to get to the original building with the smooth corners and even the fence. Except here the building is a lot shorter because they had to fit it into the entire game frame. But unfortunately, that's kinda it for the Piltover side. In my opinion, it is not as cool as what we can find around Zaun, especially with the statue of Vander and stuff like that. I mean, if we go to the other side of this place, yes, the streets of Piltover are gorgeous. And yes, it is igniting my passion for the MMO again, but maybe it lacks like 1 or 2 more cool details. With that said, there is that one broken pillar that fell down, and it really seems like a setup from a scene that might happen in Arcane 2. Unless it already happened in Arcane 1, but I don't remember anything. But outside of that, that's kinda it. Which is where we can mention one more awesome thing. There are some special Easter eggs on the Bridge of Progress that are coded into the game, but they seem to be currently disabled. And it is likely done to prevent any kinds of spoilers of getting out there. And don't worry, I'm not gonna spoil anything in this video, not that I really know anything. But this entire map has special conditions, and if these conditions are met, it spawns special characters around. And those characters likely have interactions. Now I don't really want to show any of the characters in this video. I mean, I am confident that none of these are a spoiler, because it's just characters that were shown in the trailers. So just as an example, one of them is this. It's the guy that's part of Echo's Firelight. He was in Season 1. So the chances are that when you play Echo on Zaun's side, it may spawn this character and they're gonna have some kind of an interaction. And that's all done to give the Bridge of Progress some more flavor. At least, that's the theory based on all the data mining that was done. In reality, nobody really knows what these triggers are gonna be and what the interactions are gonna be. It could be just animations, it could be voice lines. Either way, they are likely all disabled to avoid spoilers. Which also means that as the episodes of Season 2 come out, they will be likely re-enabled. But now, that is really all the new ARAM has to offer. I have to say, after playing about 4 or 5 games on it, it is really cool. I'm having a blast not only with the awesome new layout that gives a chance to more sneaky characters to go that one tiny passage, but also the entire theme is just so well put together. So overall, I have no doubt that the entire ARAM community is gonna feel the love. And best of all, while the Bridge of Progress was confirmed to be limited for this event, the plans are that at one point, it is gonna come back. We don't really know what this means. I'm gonna hope that it means that ARAM is also gonna have like seasonal passes. As in, there's gonna be seasons and every season the ARAM map is gonna change. Hopefully. But you know, if this bridge eventually comes back like a year later, it's gonna be really awkward to get back here if Arcane turns out to be a tragedy.